Hi, everybody. Welcome. Today we are here to talk about coyotes. And we have not officially started. We are waiting for people to join us. It is not quite 3 o'clock, but we could talk about coyotes a little bit for a minute. Let me adjust this. Okay. Woo. All right. So one of the sources that I'm probably going to be talking about today is going to be this book, Coyote America. And you know what we're going to do really quick while we wait for it to be exactly 3 o'clock? There's a reading. This is from the journals of Lewis and Clark. And this is from Meriwether Lewis. And this is from 1805. And I am getting it from this book. The small wolf, burrowing dog of the prairies, are the inhabitants almost invariably of the open plains. They usually associate in bands of 10 or 12, sometimes more, and burrow near some pass or place much frequented by game. Not being able alone to take a deer or goat, they are rarely ever found alone, but hunt in bands. They frequently watch and seize their prey near their burrows. In these burrows, they raise their young, and to them they also resort when pursued. When a person approaches them, they frequently bark, their note being precisely that of the small dog. They are of an intermediate size between that of the fox and active fleet, and delicately formed. The ears large, erect, and pointed, the head long and pointed, more like that of the fox, though is much coarser and inferior. They are of a pale reddish-brown color, the eye of a deep sea-green color, small and piercing. Their talons are rather longer than those of the ordinary wolf, or that common to the Atlantic states. So this is all the way back from the Journal of Lewis and Clark, and this was their experience with the coyote, who we're also having experiences with today, aren't we? So on a little more fun note, also from the same book, as we get started, I'm going to tell you a little tale about Coyote and the frog people. One day, as always, Coyote was going along. This particular morning happened upon the frog people, who, since the start of time, had monopolized all the water. Anytime someone needed a bath or water for cooking or even a drink, he or she had to barter or beg for it from the frog people. All the water was in their possession. So Coyote shell he'd found so that he could take a drink from the water they had impounded behind an immense dam. Coyote drank and drank, and he drank for such a long time that the frog people finally grew suspicious. And they should have, for Coyote was not just drinking. He was also digging away intently at the base of the dam, which finally collapsed and released all the water behind it across the world. The frog people were furious. They had owned all the water, but Coyote shamed them. It was not proper for one group to hoard what everyone needed, he told them. Now water was available to all. So Coyote, while sometimes acting in his own self-interest, could also act for the benefit of the group. In folktale and also in real life, right? So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And as we're going, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the comments and I will try to answer them as we go. So a lot of people, so first of all, we're Chiringa Ranch and I'm Dana Stengel, and we do native wildlife education in the Los Angeles area. And we talk to people about coexisting with animals like coyotes who exist very close to us in these urban areas. And usually I'm wearing my super official Taringa t-shirt, but today I am wearing my super awesome Project Coyote t-shirt because today we're talking about coyotes and because we also love the work that Project Coyote does. Thank you, Project Coyote. So as we're talking about coyotes today, we'll talk a little bit about their habits, right? So when am I likely to see a coyote? Why is there a coyote in my backyard? One of the number one questions that we get lately is, why are they suddenly here? Why didn't I see coyotes when I was a child? Why does it seem like it's just the last few years? So there's a number of answers to that, and I'm sure science will give us more answers as we go. But a few things that you can think about when it comes to that are, number one, how old are you? How many people were on the planet when you were born? How many people are on the planet now? So for many of us, the population change in that amount of time has been exponential, and the size of the planet hasn't grown, but we're taking up more of the corners of it. So of course, we're going to find ourselves on top of more wildlife. But there's some other things going on too. First of all, leash laws and animal control. While this is something that's a regular part of our life and we're used to it, these things are relatively new to society. It used to be back in the day, the dogs just ran around on the street, right? And, oh, we know that dog belongs to the Smiths over there, but he didn't have a tag and he didn't have a fence. These days, these animals have tags, they have fences, and if they don't, they get picked up by animal control. So there aren't wild dogs roaming the streets in general. While of course there will always be strays, back in the day, these dogs would even come together as little sort of feral packs, and they would act differently when they were on their own, which is part of the reason these laws were enacted. So there's that. And further, when an animal doesn't have something pushing it to keep moving, maybe it doesn't always have to keep moving, right? So in wilder areas, there are wolves that also coexist in the same areas that coyotes do, right? But they keep them moving because they're not going to share the same area at the same time. So they might have overlapping territories, but the coyote is avoiding the wolf at all costs. Once you remove the wolf from the environment, once you remove the dog from the environment, and once you start paving in more places and you have more humans, and where you have more humans, you have more trash, and where you have more trash, you have more rodents, naturally, you're going to have more coyotes. So that gets us to where we are today, which is my neighbor's dog was taken by one. So it's a very real situation. They're living there and we're living here and we're sharing territory. So how can we do that without there being issues? And can we do that without there being issues? And can we do it humanely, or do we have to do it lethally? These are the questions that come up on social media and in general. And so just like a lot of the things in life, nobody can take away the chance completely of something bad happening to you or your pet or your loved one, but there are things that you can do that will reduce the chances. And so in a response to what's happening around us, Taringa has sort of taken it upon ourselves to do that sort of education. Like, how do we coexist humanely? Because we totally can. We just have to watch our pets. So we can find them outside in our backyard or on the street any time of day. Some people have heard that they are nocturnal, but they're not necessarily nocturnal. I would say that in general, they're probably more active at night. But then again, I would say that wherever they're getting their food and whenever that's available, that's when they're going to be active. So if someone is letting their chickens out during the day, but not at night, and they feel like that's 100% safe, it is not 100% safe. If Coyote starts realizing those chickens are out during the day, but not at night, I can tell you he's probably going to start showing up during the day. So once they realize what resources available to them, they will make themselves available during that time of day. But in general, I would say they are more active at dawn and dusk. So many animals are. And at night too. And night poses a different problem. Night poses the problem of humans not being able to see as far out around them. And so if their leash is too long, they might not see where the dog is at the end of the leash. And that's a whole other story. And that makes night even more serious. So these animals live around us. There are studies going on right now in Chicago that are showing us that they're just as active and just as successful in the urban environment among the high rises as they are in the more rural or suburban areas. And again, we ask ourselves why. They're a good size. They're about 30 pounds, roughly. And they can sort of get under things. They can get behind things. There's a lot of rodents in the city that they can live off of. But coyotes are not strictly carnivores either. So if they can't hunt a rodent or scavenge it, they can eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or some cat food that's been left out. So again, they're very opportunistic and they're very flexible about what they can eat and where they can live. And this makes them very successful in all these urban areas that we live in. And how do they see the universe? Again, there's some more videos coming out that have GoPros on the neck of the coyotes who are also being radio tracked, and they're watching. How do they cross the street? How do they look for cars? They do. Do they watch what their partner is doing? They do. Do they have habits that are similar throughout the week, throughout the month? They do. So they're learning all kinds of interesting things about their behavior. And so coyotes are living around us. They're living in our areas. Are they necessarily living in your backyard? Not necessarily. They could be. Are they necessarily living right next door to you? Maybe not. But they're not always hanging out right where they live. They're hunting. They're exploring their territories. So they could be in a variety of places within their territory at any given time. So personally, I just like to assume that they could be in my backyard at any time. And so any livestock needs to be secure, and there are all different ways to do that depending on what kind of livestock you have or other animals that need to be outside for some reason. And animals that go outside for shorter amounts of time should be supervised. And I'm going to even suggest that at night there's a leash involved for ultimate safety. I know, that's crazy. So, and let's talk a little bit about what happens when we have an altercation, right? Like I'm having a situation and the coyote's making me very nervous. I already heard that a dog has been taken by a coyote in my area, and now I'm worried that there's a problem coyote. And I just don't know what to do about that. Like I'm thinking about calling a trapper because I don't know what to do about that. And I want to explain that there's a difference between lethally deterring something and humanely deterring something. if you could take a break from all the tapping, I would really appreciate it. So lethally is the trapping, right? If you're an exterminator, your license is to trap and to dispatch, which also means to kill. They don't have a license to go move it somewhere else. And even if they did, these animals are territorial and it probably wouldn't end well. So when they come in and they lethally deter an exterminator or a trapper, or a neighbor takes it upon themselves, they're really upset with the situation, they're going to deal with this problem, coyote. Maybe they're going to put out some poison. Maybe they're going to use a firearm. People do a variety of crazy things when they are upset by wildlife, particularly coyotes. And so they deal with it. And they might get lucky, and they might, have luck and actually lethally deal with their coyote. Now, as soon as you're dealing with things that are lethal, you of course are involving other animals, right? Like, was there a dog around? Could the dog have been shot or poisoned? Yes, those things totally happen. And something else happens biologically with the coyotes, and that is that their whole birthing routine is upset. And if they didn't realize that Big Uncle Mike was dying, like if he wasn't getting old, if he's just suddenly gone, the pack is upset. They're stressed, and they don't know what's going on right now. When that happens, the next time the females go into their denning season, rather than having the usual 2-ish babies, they'll have more like 12 to 14-ish babies. That's right. So my recommendation is going to be to use humane deterrence to literally train the coyotes that are already there about where they can be, where they shouldn't be. That way, when they have their babies, hopefully 2 at a time, they're training their babies. This is the way we go. We don't go that way. This is where we get a lot of rodents. When we try to get that dog, we get scared away every time. They'll teach their babies these things. And it's much easier for them to do that than for you, I promise. So, what else? What is an attractant and what is a deterrent, right? Why would a coyote be in my backyard? What is he there for, right? Some people feed squirrels. If you feed squirrels, you're going to have more squirrels in your backyard. And guess who loves to eat squirrels? Coyotes. Maybe you have a pond in your backyard. Maybe you have a fountain. Maybe you have a pool. Any sort of a water feature will definitely attract any kind of wildlife. And remember, when something small is attracted, bigger things are attracted too. Maybe they're not there for the original source of food. I'm thinking of like birdseed, for example, right? The animal, maybe a coyote isn't there for birdseed, but a coyote is there to maybe snatch a songbird, but definitely try to catch a squirrel or a rat or a rabbit or whatever happens to be in the area eating that. Now, in the case of leaving other food out, coyotes will definitely go for that too. So what's in the yard that could be an attractant? Also, small pets can be attractants. If they're out there unsupervised and a coyote sees that, he's definitely going to try to take advantage of the situation if he can. So so having animals outside is an attractant as well. So also trash. The more trash there is, the more rodents there are. The more rodents there are, the more a coyote will want to be there. Also dark areas and areas that are not frequented by humans or pets, right? If you have like a back corner area, coyotes, like other wildlife, use their nose to navigate the universe. Of course, they can hear very well. They can see very well. They have a sense of touch as well. But when your nose sticks out this far, I can tell you, it is definitely how you are mainly experiencing your world. And so he can walk around the yard and be like, oh, yep, the dog's been here. Yep, the raccoon's been through here. Bobcat was through here last week. This dark area over here nobody's been here in like 6 months. What a great place to raise my babies. or what a great place to be my regular napping spot. So they're always going through their community, their territory, your neighborhood, identifying where can I hang out, where are my alternate locations, are these fruit trees in season, when it's raining, where's the best place to sleep or eat. So they've got all this, just like you have seasonal habits, these animals also have seasonal habits, and that is why they can make the decision to be in a place other than wherever it is they're bothering you, because they've got a whole territory, right? So that's how we coexist. In my situation, if my animals are not in my yard, I'm not really concerned. And I expect that a coyote is going to go running through my yard. But when my animals are out there, they're protected in some way. Either someone is watching them, or they're on a leash, or they're in a protected enclosure. So I know what's going on out there. Not everybody has that situation going on. All different people have all sorts of different situations going on, and they have to do what works best for them. But at the end of the day, we have to remember that, in so many cases, these pets are our family members, and we have to think about how we're going to feel if we lose them. And we have to think about all the variety of things we can do to lessen those chances, right? So we talked a little bit about the attractants in the yard. And now we're going to talk a little bit about what a humane deterrent is. So a non-humane deterrent might be a lethal deterrent, right? Or a non-humane deterrent might injure the animal or hurt him in some way. So humane deterrents don't do that. You don't even come into contact with the animal. We're just creating a situation that's really unexpected to make the animal want to go a different way. And if we create that situation sort of for a couple of weeks, over time, as the animal tries to attempt to go to that area of the yard or do whatever habit he's doing, he's going to be like, this isn't fun anymore. The light lights up. It's not dark anymore. Or they dried up the water. There's no water back here anymore. So that is the number one way that we reduce wildlife of any kind being in the backyard, where either a dog can hurt it or it can hurt a dog or a cat, right? So humane deterrents would be having a yard that is clear of debris or any sort of trash. If there's no hiding place to be, wildlife isn't going to want to hang out there. They really like hiding places. And if it's well lit, if there's a lot of activity back there, it's not going to be a place where wildlife is hanging out in general, because they know, even if you're not out there right now, they can smell, oh, you were here today. I better be careful here. This is a place where humans come pretty regularly. So there's that. And there are things that you can sort of do all the time, like have motion sensing lights that are always up and, keeping the yard cleaned up. Those are things that you could be doing all the time just to sort of always keep it that way. But when there's an issue, like, now I see the coyote sleeping in the corner of my yard. He's obviously very comfortable there. Now that's sort of probably a habit. It's probably not the first time he's been there. And we're going to use more intense deterrents to try to get him away from there. And that would include things like maybe a motion sensing sprinkler, and maybe scents like peppermint or cayenne or an ammonia water solution, and noise from a radio, that sort of thing. So depending on how severe the situation is, depends on how severe your deterrents are. And when it's baby season or there are babies involved, whatever I do is either I'm not doing it during baby season or I'm doing a very gentle version of it so that nobody's stressed out too much, because baby season is very stressful for all wildlife. So that's it. So basically it comes down to doing stuff to sort of make it harder for wildlife to get to your pets. And what else? I have some fun things to talk about. I brought my coyote print today. This is what a coyote paw print looks like. Notice the size of it compared to my hand, and notice that all of its claws, not only can you see the claws, which make it a canine print in general, they're all sort of facing the same way, and it's very oval in shape. This is how I can tell that it's a coyote print when I see it. And this is about the size of the coyote poop. I'll put it next to the print for some relativeness. And you can see that it's a little bit segmented, but not very, very segmented. If it were, it would be more like bobcat poop. Also, if it were pointed on the ends, I would think it was more likely to be bobcat poop. But it will have fur in it and often berries. Because remember, he's an omnivore. And bobcat poop, while it would be a similar size, is not going to have berries because a bobcat is an obligate carnivore, only eating meat. All right. And when I'm having a question that I don't know the answer to, I can't tell by the scat or the prints, I pull out my camera and I'll set that out there for a few nights and try to get some pictures or some video of what's going on. When I talk about noise and light, I'm not talking about anything expensive or extravagant. I'm talking about basic things. Here's one of the radios I use. It's very small, it's battery operated. I can put it wherever I need it, and it's just going to be annoying enough to keep wildlife moving when I'm breaking a habit. And then same thing here. This is not, this is something I use in an attic because it's sort of fire safe and I don't really have a coyote problem in an attic, but this is just sort of a symbol for light. Again, in areas where you've got motion sensing lighting or other lighting, coyotes are not going to frequent those areas as much. And then I wanted to talk about some of the questions that I often get. One of them is feeding feral cats. Like, how does that work? Like, are the feral cats bringing coyotes to the area? Like, you know, I want to protect the feral cats from coyotes. Like, how does that all work? So obviously, you should just be aware that feral cats are not a part of the natural ecosystem and they decimate things like native lizards and songbirds. That's number one. But I also know that so many of the people that are feeding them, they did not create these situations. They moved in and there was a situation there and they're just sort of trying to help out, right? And they don't want to get too involved, but they are leaving food out. One thing that you can do in order to keep everything else out of it is bring it back in at night. So I don't recommend feeding feral cats at all. Let me just say that. But if you have to, put the food out at like 6, pull it back in at about 8. Pull it back in though, because that food being out there is attracting all kinds of other small critters like skunks and opossums and raccoons. And not only the food, but those small animals are also attracting coyote. So one way to sort of curb that a little bit is to bring that food in at night. The cats will get used to it. They're not going to starve to death. It'll take a few days for everybody to get used to the new schedule, but bring the food in at night. I promise you, your wildlife problems will get much better very quickly. People ask me about a doggy door. How does the doggy door work? We moved into this house because there's a great doggy door and we wanted our dog to experience the backyard. And my unfortunate message about that is that when you have a doggy door, unless that doggy door leads to an enclosure, you don't know when your dog is outside, and it's hard for you to keep him safe if you don't know. And depending on the size of the dog, that could be a very unsafe situation or not. I don't know. But just be aware that when there's a doggy door, not only do you not know when your dog is outside, but other wildlife can come in. Skunks, opossums, raccoons. I even heard a story of a mountain coming in one. So not here in our area, but you know, it's possible. So just be aware of that. Just be aware of that. People ask me about that noise they hear when at night. What is going on at night when I hear that noise? So that's the noise. And you probably hear it a lot, and you probably hear it like in stereo, like 1,000 of those, it sounds like, right? And some people are very afraid in those moments because they feel like that is the sound of murder. They feel like an animal is probably dying right now, and it puts fear in their hearts. And it makes me really sad to hear that, because what that is simply communication. Like wolves, coyotes have their own distinct voices. And when they call out like that, all the other coyotes in the area can hear, oh, there's Daniel. Yep, he's doing good. Good to hear. All right, I better let everybody know I'm here now too. Oh, I'm here too. All right, who else is here tonight? Yep. Oh, good. They're all here. Wonderful. So basically, that is what you're hearing. And the myth about hearing more howling when there's a full moon, for example, might not be a myth either. Because when it's brighter out and animals can maybe see a little better, maybe have a different sensory experience, maybe they're out there doing that more. I know that when I lived in a place without electricity, we stayed up later when it was a full moon. So who knows, right? But certainly a possibility. But know that when a coyote is hunting, it is quick, and usually the sound is an animal dying quickly. It might be a quick shriek, but it is certainly not the sound of many coyotes jumping into a chorus like that. So know when you hear that, they're just checking in, they're just having fun, they're just emailing each other out loud. That's really all they're doing. That's a big Zoom call happening. That's what that is. So, so no need to worry about that. And then I get questions about walking the dog. So I have a few ideas on that. One is to please use a 6-foot leash. 6-foot leash is not that big. This is a 6-foot leash, super sturdy. I can always see my dog, and I can keep him out of bushes and from going around corners before I do. There's my poop bag. Everybody should have one of those. And I have a harness. This one is not my favorite because it's a little bit, you can tell it's a little bit loosey-goosey here. It's a little bit stretchy. I'm going to be getting a firmer one. But if I'm walking my dog and if I needed to pull my dog to me quickly, I would not want to be pulling him by the neck. I would want to be pulling him by his whole body, which the harness helps me with. So I like the harness. I like a short leash. And I like to have a humane hazing device of some kind. My personal preference in the moment is this little guy. I like that it is hands-free. You can put it around your neck so I can walk my dog with both my hands if necessary. And it's really loud for the size, and it's very lightweight. I know, right? Didn't expect that. So it's because, and if I'm using this with my dog, I'm going to condition my dog to this in advance so that when we're on the walk, this is not the first time the dog has heard this. But it's enough. It's enough in that moment to give everybody there, including an off-leash dog or a human predator, that moment of pause. Like, wait a minute, I wasn't expecting that. And that's what you're doing. And a coyote is a fight or flight animal, and he's going to flee because that's what his nature is. So, so have some, you could have a whistle, you could have anything that makes noise. You can carry a cowbell with you, whatever it takes, just something that's going to make an unexpected. Another question, you know, I've been seeing this coyote in my backyard recently, and all the neighbors have, and he's not looking too good. What's up with that? So yeah, one reason you might see a coyote closer to where you live and closer into where people are hanging out is because it's possible he has mange. Most of the wildlife in the LA area has been exposed to one sort of rodenticide or another. And I happen to have right here, this is what a bait box looks like. People think that, you know, because it's got this little hole that, you know, the animal goes in and it doesn't come out. But the reality is that it just goes in and it just gets some food, some bait that is left in here for it. It eats the bait, then it goes out and it does the dance of death for a few days. And while that's happening, a few hours to a few days. Depends on the rodenticide, depends on how much they got, depends on how healthy they were already, a whole variety of things. Either way, they're eating it, they're going out to do the dance of death. Now, maybe they'll just die, and then some animal will scoop it up and eat their corpse, which is now poisoned. Or maybe a bird of prey is going to be like, oh, it's my lucky day. I'm going to take that while it's alive. Yum. Now, it generally will only take one of those dinners for the bird of prey to die pretty quickly. Now his carcass is on the ground. And if you're a coyote, you don't have to hunt, you can scavenge, and you definitely like to do that because it's easier. A coyote, it takes more than one for him to get sick. It takes more than 5, but probably less than 10. And if the rodenticide is in the area, you can bet that more than one rodent has gotten a hold of it. So there's that. And what happens is the coyote's defenses get knocked down. So once he's got this rodenticide in his system, his defenses are down. Now his body is open to those diseases which occur in the wild. For wildlife, one main one is mange. And so, you know, back in the day when we were first wondering what a chupacabra was, now we know it's a coyote with mange. And it's a terrible way to die. Their fur falls out, their eyes crust over, they have trouble hunting and eating. And so these animals do often come closer to where humans are for an easier meal, like literally trash or things that are easily found around homes. So, so that's what that's about. And one way to avoid rodenticide is to put in a barn owl box where you could encourage a barn owl to live in the area and take care of those rodents without being enough to take your dog. So that's one idea. Also, coyotes are great rodent hunters and they don't have a lot of conflict with humans. So know that too. And then finally, we'll talk about fencing. And I won't spend too much time. For a family member, I'm not sure what board is. An animal can just put their feet right there and then just hop right over. I can already tell you, next to this fence is a big bush. The coyote doesn't need the fence. He can climb up the bush to get where he's going to. So, also, fencing can be very expensive, especially if you're trying to do it to the whole yard. So I recommend an enclosed area that's closer to the home. If your pet needs to be outside for whatever reason, unsupervised, catios are great for cats. And you could do a doggy-o for a dog. They have amazing dog runs available at Costco. They're not good enough the way they come. They need to have a chain link lid because things can jump in and things can fly in. Depending on how small your dog is, a great horned owl could take him, right? So having a lid and having shade on top is important if that's the route you're going to go. And I think it's just important to know that coyotes are around us. They're in all the urban areas that I know of right now. And so it's just more important than ever to know how to coexist with them. And it's totally possible. So I don't know, do you have any questions? Is there anything that you think we haven't covered yet? And if not, I'm just going to let you know that we are always available via email at info@tarangaranch.org. We're always on Facebook and able to answer questions there. I'm going to be here generally on Thursdays at 3 doing this. Next week, I think it's going to be 6 p.m. because of a previous appointment. And in the meantime, if you want to read a great book that does a really good job of sort of weaving natural history, coyote natural history with folklore, I really recommend Coyote America by Dan Flores. It's a great read. It'll keep you interested and informed in a really fun way. So that's my story. I hope you have a great weekend, and thank you so much for joining us here today. Take care.